Hi everyone, today I want to chat with you about the 5 finished objects that I have completed so far for 2026. You can see my colorful pile behind me, and I'm really excited to give you just kind of an overview of all of these projects. I do have vlogs on all of them, so if you want a deep dive into the process, I go into all of those details. But if you just want to know what I finished recently, let's chat about it. Actually, before we get into that, I want to mention the sweater that I'm wearing. This is the Love Note by Tin Can Knits. Pretty recognizable if you're familiar with Tin Can Knits, but I knit this out of the Knitting for Olive merino and soft silk mohair together in the color Licorice. And the sweater behind me, this one, if you're wondering, is the Soana by Denise Otter. I knit this last year. It is still one of my favorite sweaters. It's just very beautiful to look at, so I like to keep it in the background of my videos. I will start with my Tessellated Vest. This is a pattern by Andrea Mallory, and I cast this on over a year ago. I started it last March, and I set it down once I started the ribbing for like a really long time. I think I was just focused on other projects, so I definitely didn't spend a whole year working on it, but it kind of felt like I did, given that it was just sitting there on my needles for a long time. But I'm so glad that I decided to pick it back up and finish it. Once I got into the rhythm with the stitch pattern, the body went fairly quickly. It wasn't until I got to the armholes, like the flat parts, that the mosaic knitting got a little tedious with all of the colors that you're managing. There are 3 colors in total. And one of the reasons that I decided to knit this project is that I wanted to spin a braid of fiber that I had in my stash, specifically for the tessellated vest or sweater. But in the end, I did decide to go with the vest, and I'm happy I did, because I don't think I could knit full sleeves in this stitch pattern. It would not be very enjoyable for me, but this is the leftover yarn of the skein that I spun. It's from Nest Fiber, and it was this colorful, beautiful braid that I got in a fiber club. So it was not a colorway that I chose specifically, but I had it in my stash, and I had seen someone else actually spin this exact braid for a tessellated, and I really loved the way the color changing yarn works up in this mosaic stitch pattern. It is really beautiful. It is a lot of work. So I am happy I persevered through it, because it did create such a fun vest that I love to wear. I spun this as a 2-ply fractal, and I really like the way the colors worked up that way. It's a little bit stripey, but not too stripey. It definitely doesn't look like I knit stripes. Like it looks like a cohesive yarn running throughout. But I love the colors with this moss green as the main color. This is from Imperial Yarn. I have a couple skeins left over. This is the Mackenzie, which is a fingering weight, and it's in the colorway Moss, very fitting. I got this from a D-stash, and because this is a fingering weight, I did have to adjust the pattern a little bit. The pattern calls for a sport weight, which is not that different from a fingering weight, but I did decide to make some adjustments to make sure that the vest fits me. I think I went up 1 or 2 needle sizes, and then I also decided to knit a size up. I knit the size 3, which I think is a 40-inch bust, and I was aiming for like a 38.5-inch, which is exactly what I got. And then for my fluffy strand, I went with a mohair. This is just Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the colorway Dark Mustard, and I ended up holding 2 strands together, which is not what the pattern calls for. But when I swatched, here's my first swatch, I didn't love the way the mohair looked in this. I mean, it was fine. It just didn't quite pop the way that I was hoping. So I did a second swatch holding the 2 strands of mohair together, and I really liked the way this looked. And luckily I had already bought 2 skeins of the mohair, so I ended up just holding them together. And I didn't have any issues with that. I wondered at first if that might contribute to the yarn management being just a pain to work with. And I don't think it really made a difference because the two strands of mohair stick together really well. And I just kept the skeins in a separate bag, and then I could like move the bag around as I needed to untangle my yarn. So I don't think that it really made it any worse. I think it's just a little bit annoying to manage 3 skeins of yarn going at once. It's fine when you're knitting it in the round, but it's when you start knitting it flat that it becomes a pain. So when you're knitting the yoke, and I found that I mostly worked on this project at my desk so that I could leave the yarn skeins in place and then move them around easier without them getting super tangled. As far as the fit, I knit mine pretty close fitting. I think I have about 1/2 inch to maybe 1 inch of positive ease. I do like this closer cropped fit for this particular style. Another thing I wanted to mention is that my row gauge was pretty off. So when I started doing the shaping for the neck, you can see that my neck kind of comes pretty low, especially if you compare it to Andrea Mowry's sample. Like her neckline is pretty high up there. And I actually really like the lower neckline for this style because I like to wear this with a collared shirt underneath. And so this gives it enough space for the collar to stick out beneath it. And I also just don't mind that it comes a little bit lower. I could have changed the rate of shaping to bring that neckline up, but I think it looks nice the way it is. If I knit another one, I would probably try to get this gauge again so that I could keep this wider or lower neckline. So I'm really glad that it all worked out and that I really like to wear this. This is probably my most worn vest now. I only have a few vests, but it definitely makes me want to knit some more. And I really like the main color yarn, the Imperial Yarns Mackenzie. It is just so like squishy, and just the way that it knit up, even just in the ribbing here with the tubular cast on, like it looks really nice. This was a totally new to me yarn. I hadn't even heard of it when I saw the D-Stash. And I'm really glad I decided to try it, and I need to check out more of their yarn. Next up in this stack is my Jaunty. This is another Andrea Mowry pattern, and this was the first Jaunty that I knit, but I did get bit by the Jaunty bug. I feel like everyone I hear talking about the Jaunty wants to make at least another one, and I'm currently spinning for my second one, so I'm definitely in that camp as well. There's just something about this stitch pattern. It's literally just half fisherman's rib, but it is a very mindless but still a little bit engaging stitch pattern to knit. You start at one corner, you increase until you get to the middle point, and then you decrease to the other side. It's a very standard triangle shaped shawl. There's honestly nothing special about the pattern itself. I think it's just one of those basic patterns that you make once and you're like, man, I kind of wish that I was knitting another one. Plus it's just really nice to wear. It's a nice shape if you want to kind of wrap it up around your neck and then tie it like that. It's a little bit more than like a small Sophie scarf. It definitely offers warmth, and I thought it was really fun to knit. It did take a little bit of time, and that might be because I chose to knit this out of a single strand of lace weight yarn. This is Fiber Spates Cumulus, and it's in the colorway Sfagnales or Sfagnales. This is a very difficult colorway to stock, or so I found out, because I ran out of yarn when I got to about this much left of the scarf. And it was really dumb of me because in the pattern, it literally tells you to weigh your yarn and then leave 10% for the other half, just in case you have gauge discrepancies. So I got to what I estimated to be about halfway. I weighed my yarn and found out I was exactly halfway. And instead of just picking back a few rows to leave some more yarn for myself, I decided to start decreasing and then ran out of yarn. And it was really disappointing because I was knitting this over Christmas break. There was just a few days until the new year, and I spent like a full day working on this to try to finish it as a 2025 project. And that is when I found out, when I went back to my local yarn store, that they no longer had this colorway in stock, and it took 2 months to get it in stock. I finally got the skein that I needed, and I used about 5% of the skein to finish it up. I feel quite dumb about that. Like, I'm embarrassed because that should not have happened. And now when I knit my second Jaunty, I will definitely leave 60% of my yarn to finish it instead of just the 50, like I did for this one. But I had a couple people just mention that I could just finish the tip in a different color yarn. And I did try that, and I just didn't love it. So I decided to stick with waiting it out. I did not know it was going to take 2 months, but I really wanted to finish this in one color, and that mattered more to me than finishing it within the year. So anyway, it's done now, and I really like it. It is so squishy. It's so soft. It's warm, but it's still fairly breathable. I really, really like Fiberspace's Cumulus. This was my first time using it, and I definitely want to get more of it. I really want to try a project where I hold it with another yarn, whether it's something like I did for my Tessellated, or just holding it with another strand, because I want to see how it acts as a mohair substitute. I've talked before how I'm not the biggest fan of mohair. I find it a tad itchy sometimes, even though I'm wearing a mohair sweater, and I'm going to talk about another mohair sweater. I do really like the Knitting for Olive mohair. That's one of the softer mohairs that I've tried, and it doesn't bother me too much. But I think a few years ago, I had some bad experiences with mohair, and I do have eczema, and dry skin. And so sometimes if I catch it at the wrong time, mohair just isn't it for me. But I think I'm warming up to it. I'm maybe getting over whatever blocker I had with it. Anyway, all of that to say, this is alpaca and silk, not mohair and silk. And I do find it a lot softer and less prickly. So this seems like a really nice mohair substitute, and I want to try it. And I think knitting it as a single strand in a scarf that I'm going to be wearing up against my neck, this is much softer to me than if I had knit this out of mohair, and you get a very similar effect. So if you kind of have similar feelings about mohair and haven't tried this yarn yet, I definitely recommend it. The price point is around the same as a skein of mohair, so I think it's worth a try. Oh, and in case you were wondering, to knit this size, I used just over 3 skeins of the Cumulus, and of course you could just use 3 if you planned it better than me. But that is around 75 grams of a lace weight yarn. I knit it on a 2.75 millimeter needle, a US 2, and I really like this size. Next up is my 2026 handspun sweater. At this rate, I am knitting a handspun sweater a year since I knit one last year too. And this is the Port Cardigan by Ozetta. My next 2 patterns are from Ozetta, by the way. These are the only 2 patterns that I've knit from her, and I was kind of trying out her patterns given that I've seen so many people knit them and they seem like really nice basic sweaters. So I wanted to try them out myself. So this is the Port Cardigan. There's also a Port jacket. I don't know if the difference is just the gauge, but this was, I think, about a sport weight gauge. Okay, the pattern calls for a DK weight yarn, but I think I was aiming to spin closer to a sport weight because I usually spin a little bit thicker than I want. And so I ended up with what I would consider to be a DK weight yarn. This was a combo spin that I did during Tour de Fleece last year, and it was really fun because I went stash diving and I picked out a bunch of kind of random colors that I thought would look nice together. Hoped and prayed, really, is how I should put it, because I had no idea how this was going to work out, but I just wanted to see what would happen. So I used a total of 6 braids, and I just combined them randomly. So I split them all up and I broke them down into smaller pieces. I put all of those pieces into a giant basket, and then I just literally stuck my hand in without looking, grabbed a piece of fiber and spun it. And I spun this into a 2-ply, and I do have vlogs of the process. Those are my Tour de Fleece vlogs from last year. Those were really fun to film. I did spin a couple other things in those videos, but if you want to skip around and just look at how I spun for this project, I think it is in my week 2 vlog. If that's wrong, I will link the one where I actually worked on this down below if you want to check it out. But anyway, that's how I spun for it. And the knitting was mostly just a lot of stockinette, a lot of flat stockinette, because I really wanted to let the yarn do all the talking. And it does. It's, yeah, it's just a lot of color, and I really like how it turned out. I think when I first finished it, I was a little bit like, oh my God, what did I make? But as I have worn it, and as I've gotten positive feedback on it from other people, I am like, no, this is cool. I really like these colors together. It's definitely bright. It's definitely stripy, and it's kind of a lot. But that's what I love about hand spun yarn. It just creates the most interesting, unique yarn. It is just a basic drop shoulder sweater with European shoulders, so you get this nice detail on the back. And then it does have this rib section at the arm side, but other than that, it's really just a basic sweater. I don't love the way the neckline fits when I button it all the way. It like bubbles out, and so I just always leave it unbuttoned like this. And I do like that look, and I might wear it that way regardless of how the neckline fits, but I am a little bit disappointed that the neckline fits weirdly. I probably could have picked up more stitches than what the pattern called for, and that might have helped, but I also think the shaping here is a little bit too shallow, maybe. Like it needs to come down just a little bit further to give your neck some more room, because you can kind of see if I do that, like that's a very small neckline, and I just think it's too small. I knit the size medium, which gave me about 7 inches of positive ease. My gauge was a little bit larger than Ozetta's, which is a theme that I've had with her patterns. It wasn't enough of a discrepancy to really change the size that I was going to knit, but it did add a little bit more positive ease, which I like. I think it fits nicely. I did add some length to the body, just a couple of inches, which did affect how many stitches I needed to pick up for the button band, but that is pretty easy to figure out. You could either just use the same pickup ratio as what is called for in the pattern, or you can just take your row gauge and divide that by how many inches you've added to the length, and figure out from there how many extra stitches you want to pick up per the extra rows that you have. I really like the buttons that I went with. I had a variety of colors of these matte shell buttons that I got from La Mercerie. Some of them were a little bit more colorful. I had like pink and green. I think I also had brown. So I had some like colorful and more neutral options, and I kind of landed right in the middle with this very light blue. I figured if I don't like it, buttons are really easy to swap out, so I can always change it later. But so far I'm really liking the way that the light blue kind of contrasts but also complements the yarn. I felt like I didn't want to go too colorful for the buttons in the end because of how colorful of a cardigan it is. So I'm glad I kept it a little bit more neutral. And then I also sewed them on in kind of a fun way. Well, I don't know if it's that fun, but it's a little bit different than the like X crisscross. I just sewed them on straight. Maybe that's less fun than a crisscross, I don't know, but I had never sewed on buttons that way, so I just decided to do that using a contrasting thread. I went with a navy thread, and I just really like my handspun cardigan. I'm already looking forward to my next handspun sweater. I haven't planned it yet or anything. I don't even have any ideas yet, but I just think it's so fun to spin the yarn for a sweater and knit it up. It's becoming one of my favorite things to do. And I guess I kind of lied. My one idea with my next handspun sweater is to do a solid color spin, because I really love spinning super colorful yarn. But I don't know, I just want to try something that is either tonal or solid color, just to do something a little bit different, since my last handspun sweater was pretty colorful as well. So I need to start planning that, because Tour de Fleece would be the perfect time to spin for that. The last sweater that I have finished this year, there's been a lot of sweaters so far, and a lot more to come. This is the Lakes V-neck pullover by Ozetta. I think I'm gonna hit pause on the Ozetta patterns for now, but it was fun to knit two of her sweater patterns kind of back to back, and also to try out such a popular sweater. It's just a basic saddle shoulder sweater with this nice V-neck, and there is also a crew neck. I think it's just called the Lakes pullover, but I really liked the V-neck, and I had this yarn combo, this exact color and this pattern in mind for over a year before I finally cast it on. But I really wanted a V-neck sweater in this bright blue. I had that in my head for so long, and I love it. I just posted a project vlog where I timed myself making this sweater, because I was curious how long it would take to knit a stockinette worsted weight sweater. So if you haven't seen that, I knit this out of Knitting for Olive heavy merino and soft silk mohair held together, which was a little bit of a dense combo for this pattern. This color is everything. This is poppy blue, and it is one of my favorite Knitting for Olive colorways. I couldn't get it out of my head. As I mentioned earlier, my gauge with my handspun was like a little bit larger than Ozetta's, even though I went down a couple needle sizes. And for this one, I went down, I think, 3 needle sizes, partially because I just knit a little bit looser than Ozetta, but also because I went with a thicker yarn than the pattern calls for. It calls for 2 fingering weights held together with a lace weight, which to me, I would say 2 strands of fingering weight held together makes about a DK weight, and then maybe with the lace weight added, you would get something like a worsted weight, whereas I decided to hold a worsted weight with the lace weight. You might be wondering why I didn't just hold 2 strands of the Knitting for Olive merino, but it's mostly just because I really wanted to try the heavy merino held with a mohair. I've knit one other sweater out of the heavy merino, and it's a very crispy yarn, and I wanted to see if I could get it to drape a little bit more holding it with a mohair, because I really like the heavy merino. It's not as soft as the fingering weight merino. There's something about the way that it feels and the way that it wears that I really like, and I do love it with the merino. I think it has a nice structure, but it also has a good drape with the mohair in it. So I am very happy with the way this sweater fits, and I hope it will wear really well. I have been wearing it a lot these past couple weeks because we got a cold front, and I don't see any pilling whatsoever compared to my handspun sweater, which I've also been wearing a lot. There is a little bit of pilling under the arms. I won't go into too much detail about the process of knitting this because I did just post that project vlog, but somebody asked what I think is a good question, which is about the short rows that Ozetta incorporates into her drop shoulder sweater patterns. You will notice that there is some shaping. It's not a total right angle sticking off of the sweater body. We have some increases here. It's knit top down. So we have some increases to shape and curve this arm side at the bottom here just a little bit. We also have some short rows done at the shoulder so that the shoulder slopes. And then the third element of shaping here is the short row shaping that you do right here, right after you pick up for the sleeve. So the question that I got is, why would you put short rows at the top of the sleeve since this is a drop shoulder and the shoulder has already been knit and the sleeve is all the way down here where you really don't, you don't have a whole lot of shape here, or maybe you do, maybe you have actual muscles, but I don't. So I don't have a whole lot of need for shaping down here. I need the shaping to be up here where my arm connects to my shoulder, and I want to be able to move it around freely. So I just did a quick search just to see if any other designers out there are doing this, or if anybody was talking about why Ozetta does this, because I have seen this in her port cardigan. And so I think this is a bit of a standard for her drop shoulder sweaters. But as far as why she adds them, I couldn't find anywhere in her patterns where she talks about what that shaping is adding to the sweater or how it's improving the fit. So my best guess as to why they're there is because you're adding length to the top of the sleeve, you are lengthening the sleeve while removing some of the bulk that you can have at the underarm. So we have the increases here to remove some of that bulk, and then we also have the length added only to this section. It's like a triangle here, to reduce some of the amount of fabric that ends up getting knit down here. So there's just less bulk at the bottom of the armhole. I think that you could still knit these sweaters without that short row shaping and have a pretty good fit. Like, I don't think it's really changing anything too much, but I do think any shaping you can add, as long as it is logical, like it matches the shape of human anatomy, then it's going to improve the fit in at least a subtle way. So I am all for these like little things that we can do to help shape the fabric in a way that fits our bodies better. And short rows are just really easy to do. You are literally just knitting back and forth and adding a special stitch when you turn to make sure that you don't get a hole. And you're also already doing short rows for the shoulders, so you may as well do them for the sleeves. But I just thought that was interesting because when I first knit my port cardigan, I was a little bit thrown by the short rows, thinking like, why is this part of the pattern? Like, what is this doing? I've never seen this before. And I just decided to do them again for the Lakes pullover, but I really wanted to know why they're there and what they're actually doing to help improve the fit. And the last FO that I have so far this year are my Christmas socks that I finished like the first or second week in January. I don't know why these took me past Christmas to finish them. I think when I didn't get them done by Christmas, I just kind of lost motivation, but I found the motivation to finish them before January ended at least. I knit these out of this lovely colorway by Tiny Human Knits. This is the colorway Season's Greetings. There is a hair on my yarn, and it is just such a perfect Christmas colorway. This was actually a skein that she didn't get quite right when she dyed it. I think there was something with one of the greens that just wasn't quite the quality of color that it needed to be. And so I got it at a discount, which is awesome because I don't know the difference. To me, this looks like a beautiful colorway. I love self-striping yarn. It is a lot of fun to knit, and the contrast color mini skein is always fun. I knit these for a knit along that I did at the end of last year that I called the Fall-Aloft Legal Heel Cow, because this is using the reverse Fleagle heel that I released last year. It's a free pattern, and it's just the Fleagle heel but knit cuff down instead of toe up. And I wanted to knit a pair with a contrast heel just to show what that would look like. And then of course I knit the toes contrast as well. But even though I didn't really get to wear these at all, I am happy to have them finished. I am looking forward to wearing them this year for Christmas. I think these are my second pair of Christmas socks ever. And if you watched my Vlogmas, you saw them a lot. Well, that is everything that I have finished this year so far, but I do have new projects that I'm excited to show you. My next video will be a vlog, and it will either be a spinning vlog or a week where I'm working on my new spring projects, and it just depends on which video I can get done first. So I did want to show you, I mentioned in my spring plans video that I had ordered the yarn for one of my projects for the Umbria summer top, and the yarn came in. So this is Knitting for Olive cotton merino, and I love these colors together. This is my new hyperfixation. So this will be featured in the vlog where I am working on my new knitting projects for spring. So one of those two videos will be coming next, and I will see you then. Bye!